Welcome to the Picky Girl Travels podcast, the show for Black women who want more out of life and to live it as they see fit. The message here is all about defying convention, embracing adventure, and regretting absolutely nothing. I am your host, Adelia Borshade of PickyGirlTravelsTheWorld.com. Oh, y'all are in for a treat today. I reached out to Nicole to be on my YouTube channel. I'm doing a panel with, or depending when this comes out, I did a panel with Black women expats who've been abroad long term, more than a decade. And Nicole agreed to do that. And, I hedged my bets and asked if she'd be interested in being on the podcast. And thankfully, she said yes. I think you not only are you going to love hearing from her, I think her story is going to kind of like reinvigorate or re-energize you on your path to living the life that you want. You are There's a lot to talk about with you.
I know. I
And
know.
it's kind of hard to know even where to start. Um, but there was, I guess you were interviewed on the thread. I
I was.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but there was something you said there about when you quit your job and how, like, basically you only do things that feel right. I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. This is somebody I need to talk to because I say that all the time. Like, I spent the first half of my life doing a whole lot of shit because I felt obligated. And so
Mm-hmm.
now I don't do things I don't want to do.
Facts.
Point
That part.
blank, period.
That part.
So I was like, okay, absolutely. We need to talk to her. But where to start with you? I don't know. Okay, so I've got like some random points here. Okay, let's start with this. You are a self-described third culture kid.
hmm
Why do you describe yourself that way?
That's such a great question. And I think for me, it's because my entire life has been a blend of different cultures, different nationalities, and different perspectives. So, in addition to being a third culture kid, I also identify as being multicultural and multinational. So, my dad is Black American, my mom is from Iran. So growing up in a mixed race, mixed culture, mixed nationality household, nothing was ever black and white, right? My dad had an opinion, my mom had an opinion, and then they would look to me and my brother and be like, okay, well, what do you think? And so, growing up in that kind of a way made it so that, I knew that there was not hard lines in the sand, about lots of issues because I knew for a fact that like people could have different perspectives and live peacefully and lovingly together with different perspectives, right? And so couple that with the fact that my dad worked in oil growing up, so we moved all over the world, and that's where more of this third culture kid bit comes in. So I was born in California, then we moved to Texas, then we moved to Louisiana, then we moved back to Texas, and I moved to Singapore. So I lived in Singapore for my first 2 years of high school. Then I moved back to California. Then I moved to DC. Then I moved to Bolivia. Then I moved back to DC. And then I've been in South Africa in and out for the past almost decade now. And so that's really where that third culture kid piece gets picked up. So third culture kids are sort of historically identified as folks who go and live full time in a culture that is neither their culture nor their parents' culture. So being having a Black American dad, an Iranian immigrant mom, then moving to Singapore, I was suddenly immersed in this environment at the age of 14, right? That's like when you're a freshman in high school. Like at the age of 14, I'm immersed in this environment where nobody looks like me, nobody speaks the same language as me, and I got kind of got to figure it out on my own. And I was absolutely in love with it. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever to be fully immersed in this place where like everything is brand new, even doing things like going to the grocery store, right? It's not mundane. I'm like, what's going to be on the shelves? What's the music going to be like, in the store? What am I going to buy today, right? It was so, so, so different than what I was used to, even moving around different states in the US. So that's kind of how I pick up that multicultural, multinational, third culture kid moniker.
It's interesting how enthusiastic you were about that because there are a lot of folks where being plopped down in this culture that is not theirs, it is not that of either parent, often has the opposite impact,
Mm.
where they don't meet it with such glee and see it as this exciting opportunity and adventure. And it's more of like, like I don't fit in and, all of that kind of thing. Um, it says here that you've worked in 23 countries across 5 continents.
Hmm. I am a jet setter. Drop me anywhere and I can integrate.
I mean, um, so okay. First of all, you went to Georgetown and your major was like culture and politics, or
Yep, that's
okay,
correct. I saw
culture
you
and
Italian.
yeah,
Did the
okay.
homework.
And so, okay, on the one hand, that makes sense given that you had lived outside the US. But on the other hand, it's like, did your experience like living in Singapore, having a mother who was an immigrant to the US, did that play a role in that choice as well?
Yeah, the choice to go to Georgetown. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in Georgetown School of Foreign Service, which typically has students sort of on a path toward being diplomats and being foreign service officers. Or it's for all the students who really want some kind of international degree. So for me, I was like, I want to be at the intersection of social justice and international travel. So going to Georgetown was a no-brainer. It's in Washington, D.C., which is one of the most international cities in the United States, right? You've got the State Department there. You got everyone who's sort of doing everything in the international space there. You've got all the embassies, right? There's Embassy Row. You can go see, oh, this is the embassy from Japan or the embassy from, the Emirates, like whatever, right? And so it was like this environment for me where I was able to connect with a bunch of other people, not only personally, right? Because you're in college, like you're having fun, you want to do all those fun personal things, but also from a professional perspective. And so studying culture and politics, being in the School of Foreign Service, being able to spend a summer, 3, 4 months living in Bolivia, working at a nonprofit in Bolivia directly with these incredible women who are working at this like women's co-op in Cochabamba. Having all those experiences at Georgetown paved the way for me to then go have a career in international development, which is what I did for the first sort of decade of my career. And immediately after graduating from Georgetown, I went into the Peace Corps. And so that's sort of what first got me to South Africa. And then, yeah, obviously we'll talk about how my story and how my direction has changed significantly since then. But that's how it started, the Georgetown and like, having this like mixed race family and living in Singapore, all those things. Absolutely, that's how it started, which got me to Georgetown, which got me to Peace Corps, which got me to South Africa. Bada bing, bada boom. And then it's evolved from there, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
As I was doing my research, I was like, I kept thinking, how old is she? Because
Yeah.
you've lived like 3 lives, maybe possibly more, because you're talking about like, oh, for the 10 years of my career, 23 countries. Like
Yeah.
you were in the Peace Corps, you worked for the United Nations. Like you're in your
Uh,
30s, right?
yeah, I'm 31. I'm 31. Yep.
31. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Yep. So, what I have to say is, so immediately after finishing my Peace Corps service, and during the Peace Corps, I was an education volunteer. So I was working in a rural community in Limpopo, South Africa, working alongside amazing local leaders in this community, doing health and literacy projects. So it's like teaching English at the school, helping the other teachers build out curricula. I worked on a project where we, ended up getting 2,500 books donated, not only in English, but also in local South African languages, and built the community's first ever library, which was incredible. I started doing extracurricular activities for the students, like to give the girls in particular an extracurricular activity. There were some like sports for boys after school, but there were no extracurricular activities for girls in this community that I lived in. So it was like health, it was literacy, it was wellness, it was like all these things sort of wrapped up together for those 2.5 years. And then I did a 3rd-year extension of my Peace Corps service and ended up working for an organization it was a nonprofit organization, an international nonprofit, but they did multilateral partnerships for public health. So my role as a partnerships coordinator and manager was to literally manage our relationships with our private sector partners who were funding our programs, and then to work also with our local community partners on the who are actually doing the work on the ground, and then also align like their interests in public health with national interests. So what does the Ministry of Health of Mozambique want you to do around public health as a local organization, and who are you going to find in Mozambique who's going to fund it? So at the intersection of, this is partnerships work. At the intersection of partnerships is like, yeah, you've got the corporate side, you've got like the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth and Sport, then you've got the local NGOs doing the work. And so because of that and being in that role, I was facilitating trainings, hosting workshops for people in a different country every single month. So I'm living in Cape Town, South Africa as an American. And they also hired me after my like extension of my Peace Corps service, which is what I did for like 7 years, right? So I'm living in South Africa as an American. Every single month, I'm in Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Botswana, Mozambique, Equatorial Guinea. Every single month, I was traveling to a different country, liaising these partnerships and meeting the most incredible people all over the world. And so that's how these countries just like racked up, because we had partnerships all over the place.
Wow. Okay, because so far what you have described is like the life some people dream about.
I mean, you're spot on, Adalia. I mean, I can distinctly remember during the third year of my Peace Corps service, which is when I started like traveling this heavily and doing this work, I was doing a training for another Peace Corps post in Malawi. And the woman is actually now the director of Peace Corps, full stop. At the time, she was the country director of Peace Corps Malawi. And she was like, I remember her saying to me, she's like, Nicole, are you telling me you're in the Peace Corps and you live in Cape Town, which is obviously like one of the most fabulous global metropolises in the world, and you get sent to a different country every single month, like on Peace Corps, like on US taxpayers' dime? She was like, are you aware you have the best Peace Corps position in the world? In the world. And I was like, oh, I never really thought about it like that. But upon reflection, I was like, oh yeah. This is like unparalleled. It's not a thing that anybody else is doing.
I think that's a good word, unparalleled. I very much think that is a good word. Okay, so, but you quit in March of 2021.
I did. Adios. Goodbye. Sayonara. Zaijian.
Okay, so let's dig into that, shall we? Now, March 2021, we at that point, we're at least, depending where you are in the world, I was in China when the pandemic started. So okay. my pandemic has been longer than most of the people I talked to. But at that point, no matter where you were in the world, you were at least through a year of the pandemic. And I don't know this to be true, but I'm going to suspect that the pandemic made you reevaluate some things. Because that's a story I hear a whole lot doing this kind of thing. So I don't know. You tell me, what made you walk away from this unparalleled life you were living, this job that many would describe as their dream scenario?
If I'm going to be completely honest and blunt with you, I left because of institutionalized racism in the international development sector. And let me just be straight up, since you're all about Black women taking control of their lives and agency. So let me just be straight up about what my challenges and issues were, right? So again, it's this situation and this thing where, for so long, this lifestyle and this job and this role is so glamorous. And from an external perspective, it is wildly glamorous. It's incredible. People are looking at me like, wow, you travel all the time. You're meeting all these amazing people. And yeah, for a long time I was. And then I think, in 2020, what happened was I stopped traveling, right? Borders closed. I couldn't leave South Africa anymore. We couldn't work with our partner organizations in the same way. And especially in the public health space, funding pivoted, from HIV/AIDS, malaria, a lot of the sort of work we were doing before, pivoted to, COVID-19 relief and programs and things like that. So, okay, cool. But so much pivoted to being virtual as well, which was fine. But as a sort of health, wellness, and like a play organization, it was kind of hard for us at the time to do what we wanted to do virtually because we're all about like getting up and moving around, fun energizers, things like that. We kind of had that those sort of programs going with young people, funded by all these sort of stakeholders I had talked about previously. So I was grounded, right? I couldn't move, I couldn't fly in the same way that I could. And so it was in that time that I sort of had to take a good look in the mirror and, figure out whether I liked what I saw or not. And I think this is something that I think has happened with a lot of women, and particularly women of color, in the last 2 years. There's a collective consciousness shift toward better understanding our purpose, our power, and our passion. And I realized that at the company I was working for and in the industry as a whole, there were so many incidences where I'd wanted to put forward ideas, where I did put forward ideas. I put through things that I was like, this is going to be more engaging for the youth. This is going to be an opportunity where we can really capture the young market, right? And I'm working on the African continent, right? There's a youth bulge in Africa. Like the majority of the population are like 25 years old on the whole entire continent, over 1 billion people, right? So I was like, there's so many different ways we can connect with young people. And I was constantly hit with these no, 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 no's. And then, when I actually stopped flying, is when I sort of had this like peek behind the scenes of who was actually making those decisions, who was actually being put into leadership positions. And I started to realize, oh, wow, well, they send me all over the world, all over the time. But when's the last time I got a raise? When was the last time that my title changed? There was all these things that I realized, wait a second, like other people are getting title changes, other people are getting more money than I am. But I'm like allegedly the face of the company overseas, right? Everyone around the world knows me from your company because you send me everywhere. But I'm still sort of at the bottom of the totem pole. And it was through these things and through some overtly racist incidents that happened, which is inevitably the case in a lot of these aid organizations, because it's white American men and white European men making decisions on behalf of Black African youth. There was overtly racist incidents that happened. There was, all sorts of microaggressions. And it kind of came to the point where I was like, I'm trapped in the middle because I am American. So I can understand the privilege, I can understand the power, I can understand the dynamics and the hierarchy at play from the American side of things. But at the same time, like I'm Black, right? I'm a Black person. I'm a person of color. So I can also understand what my Zambian, South African, Zimbabwe, and Nigerian colleagues are going through and the struggles and the challenges they're having. I, as an American, coordinator, am making more than my South African counterparts in a higher role just because I'm getting paid in US dollars and you're getting paid in South African rand. And that's, to be frank, like that's bullshit. Let's be honest. Like it's nonsense. And so it was this thing where, especially with Black Lives Matter, this huge civil rights movement happening in 2020, I'm watching it from afar. I'm in South Africa. I'm looking at this company I'm working for. I'm looking at the leadership, looking at the global board with not a single person of color on it, right? Like you're a company that exclusively serves Black African youth. You have no people of color, full stop, on your board, So it was like all of these things just piled up, piled up, piled up. And I was like, okay, no, this is not it. This is not it for me. And I loved the international piece. I loved traveling. I loved doing all those things. So in 2021, in March, I was like, nope, I'm going to quit. And I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do next. I'm going to figure out how to connect with young people, build sustainable partnerships, have an insane social impact all over the world. But I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it the Nicole Bannister way, the Nikki Vans way. And that's what I'm doing now.
And that is what I mean about living life on your terms. Now, I read something that said the thing that you wanted to do was talk about sex.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So,
yep.
Care to explain?
Yes. So the first sort of project that I embarked on, and I hadn't even quit my job yet, actually. I was just like, I need a creative outlet. I need to do something different. So I think it was like early pandemic.
Yeah, no, because I read that someone asked you basically kind of period point blank, like, what do you want to do? How do you want to impact the world? And your response was, I want to talk about sex.
Yes, that was my response. And again, this was when I was still working for the company I was working for previously, before I quit the whole industry. And so I started this sex blog. It was called My Basketball Team. It's based on the idea that, everyone you've ever been intimate with in your life is on your team. The main person that you're seeing is your star player. The couple of people who are always kind of around, those are your starting five. If somebody lives in a different city or somebody's not acting right, they're on the bench. Anytime you go out, it's the draft, right? So it's kind of based on this like this fun basketball metaphors around intimacy. And I've been doing so much work, not only in my Peace Corps service, but also in the public health space around open, honest, safe conversations around intimacy. And so I started this sex blog where I was literally gathering stories from all of my friends or random people all over the world who were submitting sex positive stories to the blog for me to post. And so when I started the blog, I was posting a story every single day because, for me, it's like honestly, there's so many different things I want to talk about. There's so many different things I want to do. But intimacy is something so important to me because I think in my personal relationships, it's the type of thing where honest and open dialogue is the norm. And I continue to be surprised by close friends, family, and other people who say that's not the norm.
No, ma'am, that is not the norm. No, ma'am.
Right, exactly. So the question is like, how do we spark this honest dialogue in a safe space? How do we do that? So it's like, I want to hear real stories from people and I want to share them anonymously so that folks can begin to see that like these funny things that have happened to them they're not the only person that's happening to. I was getting stories from people like, some girl submitted a story saying, "Oh, my partner was going down on me, and then he fell asleep in between my legs." Right? I was getting stories like, "Oh, I am Christian. My partner is Muslim. We're in the middle of the act, and his phone alarm goes off, and he says, 'Oh, sorry, I need to go pray now.'" So he pulls out, he goes and showers, cleans himself off, lays out his prayer mat, does his prayer. Then he comes back into bed when he's done and is like, "Okay, I'm ready to go now." And the Christian partner is like, "I'm not Muslim, but I'm pretty sure that's not how it works," right? So it's like these stories where sex is celebrated, where conversations around intimacy are showcased in a positive light, because we know so many people don't have positive stories of intimacy, don't have positive sexual relationships. So it's like showing that these kind of awkward, spontaneous, funny things that happen are totally normal. People would message me all the time and be like, "Oh my gosh, I know this story is yours. It has to be yours." And I'm like, "It's not my story. 3 people have sent me the same story." I'm telling you, like I don't know how, I don't know if this is a PG-13 show
No,
or
we
what.
we speak freely around here. Don't worry.
But there was one story that I got literally, I got the same story in 3 different ways in the same week. A girl was saying, "Oh, I was giving head to my partner and I had just eaten too much food. He deep throated all of a sudden and I threw up all over him." And then he takes a look and he's like, "Oh, it looks like you had pad thai." Right? And like, that's the conversation. It's like, "Oh, it looks like you had pad thai," not like, "Oh, that's disgusting. That's gross," right? It's like, how do we shift the narratives and these sorts of interactions, because things will happen inevitably when you're doing the most intimate thing that people can do, right? Things will happen. Funny things will happen. How do we shift that narrative to be one of respect, one of comfort, one of safe dialogue, and just share those stories with the world? So I started doing that. I have to say, the blog is kind of on pause right now. I need a team to run that. Anybody listening to this, if anyone wants to run my sex blog, please come and talk to me. I need a team to help run that. But that was such a beautiful creative outlet for me at a time when I was still working in a sexual industry that I was frustrated with, wasn't able to leave yet. So I was able to start this blog, launch this blog with quite a bit of success, had some articles, had some interviews, all sorts of stuff coming out of it. And I think there's still a big market for that kind of dialogue and conversation if I decide to go back to it.
I think you're 100% right. Literally, what is it? The podcast episode that went up this week was all about like Black women who choose to be unpartnered and child free. And we got to talking about like, the things that a lot of women put up with in relationships and how they can't speak freely and all of that. So yes, no, absolutely a big market for that. Something that occurred to me while you were describing that is, as that was a creative outlet for you, but it has the potential to be very world, like change the world. But I think sometimes when we think about like, I want to help people, we often are looking for these big grandiose things that maybe register with other folks as like, okay, yes, that's appropriate, that's whatever. But saying I'm going to start a sex blog might not sound like it's going to change the world, but at its core, very much what you were doing is world changing, I believe.
Thank you.
I,
And Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think you're spot on, and that was the biggest hurdle for me leaving the development space and the development industry. Was if I'm not working in international development, if I'm not working in a quote unquote social justice job, if I'm not working for a company doing corporate social responsibility, if I'm not working for a nonprofit, am I still having social impact? And I think that, like, it's to say it now sounds like kind of funny, because you think about companies that truly change the world, think about like Uber or Airbnb, right? Opportunities for people to go travel all over the place, live all over the place, and like have income not only from the company level but on an individual person basis. And these are corporations that, like, probably at their core are thinking about the bottom line. They're not thinking about social impact. They have changed the way people can move. Uber has significantly changed the way I can safely travel to and from places. That is social impact, right? That has changed the world as we know it. And so it took me so long to kind of understand that and realize that. And again, that's because I was being gaslit so much in my former company and in my former industry that anytime I wanted to do something creative, like something like a sex blog was way too crazy for them. It was like, no, we can talk about sex, but only with these very like USAID type of terminology, and we need to use very formal language and da 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 da. And I'm like, people don't want to read that. People don't want to hear that. Like, people need fun ways of having open and honest conversations, whether it's about sex, whether it's about building companies, whether it's whatever, like whatever the topic is. And so once I got over that hurdle, and my basketball team starting that blog really helped me start that. Once I got over that, then I was like, oh, there's a big world of opportunity out there on how I can make an international social impact and do it on my terms, which I know is what you're all about.
So what conclusion did you come to? What does that look like then?
So what that looks like for me now is pivoting entirely from the development and nonprofit NGO space into entertainment. And so this has been such a fun, funny, and interesting ride. It's truly been a very humbling, a very eye-opening. Like you said, I have spoken at the United Nations in New York City. I have spoken at the State Department in Washington, D.C. I have facilitated trainings for the ambassador of Cameroon, worked with the Minister of Health of Mozambique. I was always facilitating, always on my feet. I love talking. I'm here doing this podcast with you, Adelia. I love talking to people and sharing my story and being able to bring out things in other people. And so I was like, okay, what does that look like if I'm not doing that in the development sector? And I was like, you know what? I want to be a TV show host. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to figure out how to do it. And so, immediately when I quit in March 2021, I came back to the United States, I left Cape Town. I was in the US for about 2-3 months. I was like, I need a hard stop, hard break. I need to like just shift some things up for my whole life. Came back, which is where I am right now. I'm in Los Angeles. Came to Los Angeles, spent a couple months with my parents, just surrounded by sort of unconditional love, and just had time to just relax and rest and reflect on what I'm doing, leaving this industry. What does that mean? Bridges being burned, relationships shifting and changing, which they inevitably did. Took a couple months, and then I went back to Cape Town and I met up with a couple of my famous friends. I met up with a guy named Sib Ngesi, who is a really well-known South African actor. He is about to be in Viola Davis's incredible new movie The Woman King. He has a huge role in that. My other friend Mzukisi Ntantiso, who has a couple different shows on Netflix, and he's a rapper in South Africa. So I went to all my famous friends and I was like, guys, I think I'm going to join your industry. What do I do? And I had to like step back because, again, I'm sitting here being like, I have 10 years of experience in development. I've spoken at the UN. I think I'm like hot shit, right? But like in the entertainment space, everyone's like, who cares? Like, where's your sizzle reel? What can you do? Who have you interviewed? Like, who's your biggest celeb that can vouch for you, right? So nobody cared. And I was like, okay, I need to be super humble. I'd be like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm 30 years old. I'm stepping into this space. Like, what do I do? And so they gave me some phenomenal advice, and that led to me starting my celebrity interview series on Instagram. So every Tuesday on IGTV, I go live with different actors, rappers, entertainers, and in true sort of Nicole Bannister fashion, the show is global. Every single week is a different guest from a different country. Last week, I interviewed one of the main artists in the East African band Sati Soul. They've won a Grammy with Burna Boy. They're a huge East African band, have millions of followers online. So I interviewed one of the amazing artists from Kenya, Chimano. The week before that, I interviewed a content creator from Mexico who has her own social impact company and does travel content on Instagram and on YouTube. The week before that, I interviewed a Nigerian Olympic athlete who's the first ever Nigerian Winter Olympian ever. So it's like the show every week is a different guest from a different country. And I basically called in favors from all of my famous friends around the world and said, yo, I'm starting a show. I need to build a portfolio. No TV network is backing me. So come to it, you know, and they've all said yes. Shout out to all my incredible friends and guests on Nikki Band's Live around the world, you know, which is so similar to this incredible podcast that you do, just meeting incredible people, and it just grows and grows and builds, you know, once you start to like find people in these networks. And then from there, about 4 or 5 months ago, a casting director slid into my DMs and said, Nicole, I'm casting a show, and I want you to audition for this show. It's going to be like a Shark Tank for college students. And I've been watching your show, Nikki Band's Live, on Tuesdays. I'd love for you to audition. So I sent in an interview tape. A week later, she says, come into the studio. We want you to come in for a live casting and audition. I said, cool, went in. And then a week later, she's like, all right, you got the gig. And so my newest TV show started up, is out on YouTube right now. It's this incredible show. Again, super international, just like me. And it's following these university students from India, Brazil, South Africa, Ireland, all over the world, as they pitch their social impact businesses to an elite panel of celebrity judges in the hopes of winning $40,000. So Started Up is on YouTube now.
I mean, describing that, I'm like, of course you would be the host on that. Like, did they make it for you specifically? Right? You know, the universe tends to unfold as it should. It really does. Okay.
I know so many things.
Yes, and I am just like I am literally awestruck. I am literally awestruck. I am. Okay. Now I see the progression, but you're also a nightclub host?
Yes. So, you know, one of the things, this is on my LinkedIn now. I basically say my slogan is like, so obviously my name is Nicole Bannister, but on the streets, people call me Nikki Bands. Okay, so that's the distinction there. And I'm on the streets often. And so I often will say this, like I said, this on my LinkedIn, I'll say, give Nikki Bands a microphone and watch her make magic. So whatever it is, whether it's, you know, moderating a panel for the United Nations, whether it's emceeing at a nightclub, like literally I'm the person who's like, where all my sexy ladies at? Who's getting tequila shots at the bar?
Of course you are. Of course
like
you are.
That's, yeah. Or it's a TV show, you know, whatever it is, whatever requires a microphone. I literally emceed a wedding in Portland 2 weeks ago. You know, anything that requires a microphone and an MC and a host, call your girl Nikki Bands. I'm ready. I'm ready to lend my voice.
You are probably, you're the third person who's been in the Peace Corps that I've interviewed. And you're at least the third or fourth maybe who did development work and like had to bail because of the issues with that. And I think part of my reaction to your, I don't even have a word, vivaciousness maybe is the word, is I tend to be all about like ease and like, you know, not doing everything in the most. And you are the second person I've interviewed. Both of you, I am just like left in awe at like how you can do so much. Like I get tired getting up in the morning. And so that's just me being amazed here. Okay.
You are so sweet, but also let me just give you your flowers for a second. Miss Instagram account, Miss Podcast, Miss YouTube, live YouTube. I'm like, you were literally live on YouTube before we did this podcast. Yes. I saw you. So, I mean, okay, maybe you're tired of getting up, but you very quickly hop into action because you are also doing the most in your own way. Let me just make sure I give you your flowers.
I guess. Thank you. I shouldn't say I guess. No, when somebody gives you your flowers, you should accept them graciously. So thank you. Okay. So I love that when you made that pivot, you very much made the choice that these are the things that are important to me. These are the things that I want to do. This is the kind of work I want to do. And you came up with a way to do it that you don't have to shrink yourself to do. You can be authentically yourself and
Mm,
still do the work that matters to you. I love that. Absolutely
mm,
love that. So,
mm.
I don't even know, like, where do you go from here?
Excellent, excellent question. Um, the dream right now is to have my own show on Netflix. So to have the Nikki Band show, and have it be at the intersection of all my passions. Once again, making an impact, showcasing the continent and the diaspora and all the beauty that is there, and really bridging that gap between North America and the African continent. I think there's a huge gap there. I think even Black Americans don't really understand what
They
all
don't.
is happening. Yeah, they don't really understand what all is happening on the African continent. And especially me, traveling so much, when I travel to places like Egypt and Sudan and Equatorial Guinea and Malawi, I'm posting stories, highlighted stories, so people can watch and see my experiences. They're like, oh, I had no idea that in Egypt you could go to these amazing salt lakes and go swim in a salt lake that like parallels, the Dead Sea. Like it's gorgeous, beautiful salt on all sides. Or people like, wow, I had no idea there were pyramids in Sudan. I thought they were only in Egypt. Right. So it's like I want to bridge that gap. So like whether it's, sort of a travel show or me talking to different incredible young people moving and shaking in these different major cities, places like Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, Lagos, Accra, putting those people on and having that content made for not only an African audience but a Pan African audience, so that our Caribbean communities, our diaspora in the UK, our diaspora in North America and South America can connect. Something like that would be phenomenal. So that's the goal at the moment. And like I said, it's officially I think been 9 months since I decided to be in entertainment. So I'm so grateful for all the success I've had so far. Like it hasn't really been long. And people are like, oh, do you have an agent? Do you have a manager? I'm like, no, I'm just out here freelancing, trying to figure out like what works, just trying.
9 months.
Like, yeah. I mean, because I quit in March, spent like 3 months,
Yeah.
4 months in the US chilling, and then now it's July 20, or it's August now, August 2022. So maybe I'm officially coming to the year mark now. And yeah, so it hasn't been that long. So I'm still trying to figure out like, okay, well, do I get an agent? If I get an agent in South Africa, can they connect me to the American market? If I get an agent in Kenya, can they connect me to the South African market? I'm trying to figure out all these things because I truly think that what I'm bringing to the table hasn't been done before. There hasn't been someone who has connected those dots between North America and the African continent and brought that narrative and that story together. And so because of that, I'm like, okay, if I want to go on tour across all of Southern Africa, who can organize a tour for me in Tanzania, Kenya, Zambia, Lesotho, and Namibia? Who can do that? I don't know. No one's doing that. So, just trying to trailblaze out here and figure out what the path is and see what it looks like. And again, once again, that show on Netflix or some other platform would be the absolute dream for now. And then hopefully we only go up and up in there. I can host the Grammys. I can. To be totally honest with you, Adele, you know what I want? I want to be the intersection of Barack Obama, Oprah, and Beyonce. That's what I want. I want the cross-cultural capital and the international leadership prowess of Barack Obama. I want the interview prowess, ability to liaise very casually with high net worth individuals of Oprah. And I want the star power of Beyonce. I want to like step onto a stage interviewing a president and people just go wild, that Beyonce star power. So that would be the dream, something like that.
I love how big that dream is. And because I have mentioned this on this podcast before that it did not hit me until I was interviewing a guest where we were talking about like, what was the life you dreamed about, blah, blah, blah. I never dreamed like I didn't the first half of my life was not great, very much focused on survival. So all
Mm.
of my decisions were based on that. So it wasn't until I decided to, kind of step outside the box about 7 years ago that I really had the chance to step back and be like, okay, so what do I want? What are my dreams? And so I love hearing how big your dream is. And I have not a doubt that you're going to make it happen. But I love the grandness of it. Um, I was putting in my notes as you were describing what you're trying to do, and you said, "Oh, I'm out here trailblazing." Like literally, that's what I just wrote in my notes. Trailblazer, like, and I think I want to dig into that a little bit because I think sometimes there are probably people listening to this podcast who the thing that they want to do, nobody has done it before. There isn't somebody they can look at to model it. And so that can be scary. That can be disheartening because, like I don't know how you learn to be a trailblazer. I don't know how, you know, you like how are you figuring this out? Because you're doing this thing that literally no one has done before. So how are you figuring
That
that out?
that's the $1 million question right there. Some people say things like fake it till you make it. Some people kind of have folks around them that they look to as leaders and guides and mentors. But I think what's been really interesting is that in order for me to kind of trailblaze in this new professional sort of path that I'm pursuing, I've had to do so much personal work to get there. And I think that is really what is helping me to be the trailblazer that I'm trying to be. And it's so interesting because in the development space, in the NGO nonprofit space, for years, I wanted a mentor. I was like, I need a mentor. All my friends have mentors. All my lawyer friends, all my diplomat friends, everyone has mentors who they look to seek guidance from, get advice from, and are able to move forward with. So I was like, I want a mentor. I asked multiple people, was searching for people. I could never find someone who matched my energy, which to be fair is a very specific kind of energy. I'm the only person that I know who spoke on a panel for the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism and then immediately after went and was popping bottles at the club, right? I'm the only person I know who's done that. So it's hard to kind of find people who could understand all the different sort of perspectives and shades and varieties of me, Nicole Bannister. And so I could never find a mentor. And then since leaving the industry, what I've found is a group of women who I now call my goddess gang, most of whom are in Cape Town, who I look to for energetic and spiritual and personal guidance, who, by helping me unblock past trauma in my personal life, by helping me get over the work trauma that I had in my previous jobs, by helping me get a better sense of who I am as a person, navigating different relationships, helping me set boundaries on people who don't understand my new career path, who don't actually add value or joy to my life anymore. It's been this incredible goddess gang in Cape Town who has helped me to sort of center myself on a personal level, which is now allowing space for me to be so much more creative in the professional space, because it's like I have this renewed sense of self, a renewed sense of my purpose and who I am, and this deep trust in knowing that even though I definitely don't know what I'm doing right now, that I am for sure going to become all the things that I dream I will be, and then some. And because of that deep knowing that I've been able to sort of work through, and I'm still working through with this group of tremendous healers, these women I work with, I've been able to go forward with a newfound confidence in the entertainment industry that I was never able to in development and diplomacy.
I can't imagine you not having confidence.
And I think that's a great point. But I think like someone like me who's super extroverted all the time, I can sound like this and be like this, even when there's a bunch of things going on the inside. You're never gonna see, not never, you're rarely gonna see Nikki Band shed a tear. You're rarely gonna see me have a moment of weakness. And that's kind of how I was previously, even though I was struggling with things were challenging. You know, the weight of the world as an empath, the weight of the world weighs heavy on me. When big things happen to Black people, when big things happen to women, when wars happen in different places around the world, I feel these things deeply, so deeply. And so, you know, it's even though you'll still see me doing lives and hosting and presenting and having fun and looking fly and big hair, don't care, you know, that's what you're going to see on my Instagram at all times. But more and more, I'm acknowledging that, you know, I have to do the hard work to be fully self-assured, not just what it looks like on the outside, but to truly feel that on the inside as well.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so there's a woman listening to this, and she's nodding her head. She's like, yes, I work this place where they gaslight me, and there's all this bullshit I'm dealing with. You know, or there's a woman listening to this who has this crazy, crazy dream that, you know, the few times she's mentioned it to somebody, they're like, girl, what the hell is that? Do you have any advice for either of those women?
Absolutely. My advice would be to trust your gut. One of these energetic women that I work with one time told me, she was like, if you replace the word gut with God, what happens? And I thought that was really interesting because I'm like not even religious like that. Okay. Like, you know, I'm a very spiritual and energetic person, but not religious. She's like, when you replace the word gut with God, what happens? Trust your gut. And so I would say, trust your gut and keep taking small steps toward the thing that you want to do. If you're frustrated with your job, carve out space to do the things that you want to do. Start that blog you always wanted to start. Start that TikTok account you always wanted to start. Join a network. Like, for example, one of the things I did in 2019 was I joined the TEDx Cape Town Women team. Started doing all the branding, communications, and social media for the TEDx group. This incredible women's event that we ended up hosting at the end of 2019. And that wasn't just a creative outlet for me that had nothing to do with work whatsoever, but expanded my networks, expanded my community, expanded my eyes to what was possible outside of my 9 to 5. So take little steps toward those things that bring you joy, and just wait for the day that you get that guidance from the universe that it's time. You know, for me, I truly like for years, there was like a solid like 2.5, 3 years that I was thinking, maybe this isn't right for me. Maybe I need to pivot. I feel like I can't be creative enough. And I thought that for a long time. And all my friends were like, just leave, just leave, just leave. But for some reason I couldn't do it. And then I swear one day I woke up and I was like, today's the day. Today's the day you quit. And it was so like, the decision was just there. It was the thing to do. And, you know, I truly believe that that day will come for everyone. And I think, like, talking to women like us, like that day comes for us. It's like you're like, today's the day. And you no longer have those fears. You no longer have those inhibitions. And for me, there were so many things. Quitting my job in South Africa, my visa was tied to living in South Africa. My health insurance was tied to that company in South Africa. There were so many things that, you know, all the logistics, right? All the all the very sort of like, I would call it more of like this like masculine energy, like, what am I gonna do about the visa? What am I gonna do about my health insurance? What am I gonna do about my apartment? What am I gonna do about this? Like all those like very logical questions that people normally have when they want to make these decisions. And then the feminine energy swooped in that one day and was like, it's all gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be fine. Just leave. And truly everything has been fine. So wait for that guidance and take small steps in the meantime toward your joy.
Okay, so you piqued my interest with that, because that for 2 years nearly, your inner voice had been telling you, this is not the place for me. Why do you think you didn't listen to it?
Mm. Because I was too hung up on a system that told me I had to stay where I was. I was too scared, to be honest, to leave um to leave a lifestyle that so many of my friends and peers were in, and in the development space in particular, right? Like there's a hierarchy of how people do things and how they move up and the jobs that they have and the companies that they go to. And because from a professional perspective, all those people were telling me those things, I was like, well, this is just clearly what I have to do. And I was like, well, if I step out of that, like truly, I was like, what am I actually going to do? Like, I don't know what to do. I didn't go to school for entertainment. I didn't go to school for something creative. Sure, I had friends in that space, but like they're so far advanced in their careers. I was like, well, I'm starting from scratch. Is it even possible? And so, yeah, sort of I was scared, I was nervous. And again, some of those other things around like the logistical pieces of it, me wanting to stay in South Africa, but not be tied to the company. How's that going to work? So I was playing around with some visa things, trying to figure that out. And so those were all things that stopped me from just like taking that leap. But again, my saving grace was starting things, doing things in that time that allowed me to see that other things were possible, that allowed me to see other things could be done. Joining the TEDx team, starting my basketball team, the sex blog, doing things like that that brought me so much joy and still were very successful. So like it gave me all those little like kicks in the butt that I needed to like actually take the big leap.
Do you think that where you are now, all of the progress you've made up until this point, do you think that you would be better about listening to that voice now as opposed to
Definitely.
2, 3 years ago?
Definitely. Definitely. And that's all that inner work that I was just speaking about. I've come to a place where, I don't do things that I don't want to do. I don't see people that I don't want to see. And that to me is one of the most radical acts of self-love. For me as a woman of color, for me to say, no, my time is precious and I'm not going to spend it on you. For me to say, to organizations, like I can't have conversations with you right now. I appreciate what you're asking me to do, but this is triggering for me. I can't do this, especially leaving development. So when I left, I posted all over social media. I had a LinkedIn post go viral about leaving my job in my industry. And I said all the things that I said here on your show. So, burning some bridges. Yeah, that's what happened. 65,000 people looked at it, 1,000 people, engaged with it, had 200 comments. And so when that happened, the United Nations Foundation called me, Nike called me. Oh, there are all these companies that were like, oh, you're a free agent now, come. And I had to set very firm boundaries. And I said, no, like that I need time for myself. I need time to heal. I need time to like figure out, who I am and what I want to bring to this world. And now having that renewed sense of self and purpose, I can go back to Nike and say, oh, hey, you want me to host something for you? You want me to be a brand ambassador for you? That's what I'm looking to do. I don't want to be your programs director. That's not what I'm doing anymore. I've pivoted and I can do that now with such confidence. But setting boundaries has been such a pivotal thing for me. People, relationships, organizations. And once you set those, you're able to hold space for yourself. Like I'll give you this quick example. I know we got wrap up soon, but one of the things my brother had posted something on Instagram about like this like table, and he said like you have a table and there's like a finite number of chairs at the table. So if all the seats are full, then no other opportunities, no other people can come into your life because all the seats are full. But if you remove a person, you remove something, an opportunity, you remove something you're doing, then all of a sudden there's an open space at the table. So new opportunities, new things can come in. So by setting boundaries on companies I didn't really want to work with, even though I had the skill set to do it, by setting boundaries on people who didn't understand the life decisions and choices I was making and the direction I was moving, I was able to, kick some people out of some chairs at my table so that all these new opportunities and new things could come in. And let me be honest, that's not easy. That's a hard thing to do. Bridges were burned, friendships have deteriorated. People who I was friends with for 10 years, 15 years, friends from college, friends from whatever, relationships have shifted. But it's all I know for me. It's like I said, it's the most radical act of self-love that I can have to say, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I need you to be on board. If you're not on board, that's cool. You just can't be in my space right now. And that's been one of the ways in which I've been able to move forward with this newfound confidence and have confidence even when I know how uncertain this whole industry and future is for me right now. And so far so good.
And no, that was the perfect thing, because there is a woman listening to this that needed to hear that analogy. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you mentioned you're doing interviews on IG, you have a show on YouTube. So how does someone follow you? How do they find you?
Thank you so much for that question. You can please follow me on Instagram at They Call Me Bands, BANZ. That's where I host my weekly IGTV series. I also upload all the interviews onto YouTube, so you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You just type in Nicole Bannister, Bannister with one N, Banister. You can find me on YouTube. And also LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I will say LinkedIn is like probably my favorite social media platform. I don't know what it is. Most people don't feel that way, but I freaking love LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn, Nicole Bannister, and we can also talk there. So those are the way people can find me. And if you want to watch the TV show, please do. It's been what, a month? About a month since the full 4 episodes have been released. We hit over 5 million views last week, which is just incredible. So you can go to youtube.com/GSEA competition, and you can watch all 4 episodes of Started Up with me, your hostess with the mostest, Nikki Bands.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so was I right? Is Nicole's energy not like contagious? Doesn't she have you feeling like you can take on the world, like you can basically do anything? I as I said before, the thing about her big dreams that, like I was reminded, and I'm hoping that you took away as well, is that one, we can dream big. Don't let your current situation, don't let your past situation, don't put limits on your dreams. If there's one thing we've learned from Nicole, is if there's something that you want to do, you can figure out a way to make it happen, or you can connect with the people to help you figure that out. The other thing, whatever the life is that you want, the one that you envision for yourself, don't get caught up in, oh, I don't want anything too big. I don't want anything too grand. I just want to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. Even if your dream seems small, it can have a huge impact. I think I know for me personally, I needed to be reminded of that. So I'm hoping that y'all enjoyed that interview. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Thank you for sharing the podcast with other Black women who you think it will help. Keep doing that. Keep sharing it. Keep, subscribing. Keep sending people over to the YouTube. Keep leaving reviews. All that good stuff is much appreciated. If you want to help out financially, what is it? Buy me a coffee, buy me a hot chocolate, become a patron. All that stuff is linked somewhere below, somewhere. I don't know. Okay, so that's it for today. Until next time.